Okay. So, we always hear like compromise is so important in a marriage, right? Like talking things out.
Mm-hmm.
But like, what if there's something even more basic
Right.
to making a marriage really happy and strong?
Yeah.
A marriage that
Yeah.
lasts, like something really deep inside us emotionally.
Mm.
So that's what we're looking at today.
Okay.
We're doing a deep dive into this guy, Dr. Willard Harley Jr.,
Okay.
specifically his book, His Needs, Her Needs, Building an Affair-Proof Marriage.
Right.
We're going to really explore like the core needs he talks about, the needs that are basically like the building blocks for a really great relationship.
Yeah.
And we're going to look at what happens when those needs get ignored, like
Interesting.
consistently overlooked,
Right. Yeah, that's a recipe for disaster, I would imagine.
Exactly.
Okay. For sure.
So you're with me on this journey today.
Absolutely. I'm excited to dive in.
So we're on a quest.
Okay.
We're going to unpack these 10 fundamental emotional needs that Dr. Harley lays out in his book. We're going to explore why men and women, on average, tend to prioritize them differently.
Yeah.
And maybe the most important part, we're going to look at the consequences when these needs aren't met.
Right.
Including affairs.
Yeah. That's the heavy stuff.
It is. It is.
For sure.
And, Dr. Harley argues that understanding these needs is not just helpful.
Right.
It's totally essential.
Yeah.
If you want to build a relationship that not only lasts, but actually makes you happy.
Right, exactly. You can go through the motions, but if those needs aren't being met, it's not going to feel very fulfilling.
Exactly.
And that's where the trouble really starts. It's like a crack in the foundation.
Totally. Totally.
It's got to show up somewhere.
And these 10 needs, they weren't just, like random things he came up with.
Right. Yeah.
He spent years and years listening to couples.
Right.
And seeing what kept coming up over and over again.
Exactly.
Patterns.
Exactly. Yeah, things that people said would really bring back those loving feelings.
Right.
And happiness.
Exactly. And these 10 needs became like the cornerstones of his approach.
I see.
To helping couples not just stay together.
Right.
But thrive.
Yeah. That's the goal, right?
That's the goal.
Thrive, not just survive.
Exactly. Barely making it.
Yeah. So before we get into the nitty-gritty of each need, let's just get a quick overview of what we're talking about here.
Fine.
So we got affection, sexual fulfillment, conversation, recreational companionship, honesty and openness, an attractive spouse, financial support, domestic support, family commitment, and admiration.
Wow, that's a lot.
That's a lot, right?
But when you say them out loud like that,
yeah,
they all sound pretty essential to like any close relationship.
They do, right?
Not just marriage. I mean,
like you would want these
in any close friendship.
Yeah, for sure. Any kind of important bond you have with someone.
Right.
That makes sense.
Exactly. And as we dig into each one of these, we'll see just how much power they have in shaping the emotional, climate of a marriage.
The emotional weather patterns, right?
Exactly. The emotional weather patterns.
You could say that.
And Dr. Harley has this really cool way of visualizing all of this. He calls it the love bank.
The love bank. I like that.
I know, right?
Tell me more.
So it's basically like you imagine that each spouse has this internal account for the other person. And every time you meet one of their needs, it's like you're making a deposit.
You're putting money in the bank.
Exactly. And that deposit increases the love and connection.
I see. So you're building up a reserve of good feelings.
Exactly. But then when those needs aren't met.
Oh, I bet this is where it gets tricky.
Yeah.
You're making a withdrawal.
You're making a withdrawal.
Yeah.
And slowly you're depleting those good emotions.
Okay. So it's like an ongoing balance.
It's an ongoing balance.
You got to keep an eye on those deposits and withdrawals.
You got to keep an eye on it.
Interesting.
Right?
I like that analogy.
I know, it's really helpful.
Yeah.
So let's start with the first need on our list. Affection.
All right.
And Dr. Harley's research shows that this is usually a really big one for wives.
Okay, so on average, wives tend to prioritize affection more highly?
Yeah, exactly.
Interesting.
So what does affection even look like?
Right, good question.
In a marriage, I mean, it's not like some super specific checklist, right?
Right. Yeah, he doesn't give like an exact list of things to do, but we can kind of get the idea, right? So it's like those expressions of care and tenderness and physical touch, but not necessarily like sexual touch.
Okay.
More like holding hands, comforting hug, a gentle touch on the arm. You know, those little things.
Like little signals.
Exactly, signals. And even just saying, I love you.
Yeah.
Or, you know, saying something you appreciate about them.
Right.
It's all about feeling cherished and valued in those everyday moments.
So it's not like the grand romantic gestures.
Right. It's not about like the big fancy vacation.
Okay.
It's more like the everyday stuff.
The little things.
Yeah, the little things that communicate, I care about you,
right.
Without even saying it sometimes.
Right.
Like a language.
Yeah.
You could almost say it's like the language of emotional safety.
Interesting.
For a lot of people, especially I think for a lot of women,
yeah.
Feeling safe and cherished. And when that language isn't being spoken, that feeling can really start to fade away.
Makes sense.
Yeah, it's like you're not getting those little reassurances that you matter.
Okay, so what happens in this love bank idea?
Right.
When a wife's need for affection is just constantly not met.
Well, it's like you're constantly making withdrawals.
Without putting anything back in.
Right.
So it leads to this like emotional deprivation.
Okay.
Frustration. A wife might start to feel unloved, unwanted, emotionally isolated from her husband.
Yeah, like a huge disconnect.
A huge disconnect, yeah. And that creates this void.
Yeah.
This like longing for that connection.
That deep connection.
Yeah, and unfortunately, Dr. Harley's seen this time and time again.
Right.
It can make a wife more likely to look for that connection somewhere else.
Yeah.
Which can lead to,
an affair?
An affair, yeah, an emotional affair.
Right.
It's like they're searching for someone who speaks their language.
Who can give them that? Yeah,
who can give them that sense of being cherished and cared for.
Okay.
That makes sense.
Yeah, it's sad, but it's a reality.
It is. So let's move on to the next need.
Oh, okay.
Sexual fulfillment.
Right.
And on average, this one's often a big one for husbands.
Okay, so husbands tend to rate this one higher.
On average.
Yeah.
And it's not just about the physical act.
Right. Right. It's much more than that.
Like what's at the heart of it?
It's about feeling desired. Feeling connected to your partner in this really intimate way.
Okay.
And Dr. Harley really emphasizes this idea of exclusive, right?
Okay.
Like this need is specifically for the spouse.
Okay.
And it has this special meaning.
Within the marriage?
Within the marriage because of those vows.
The vows, right.
Yeah, like this is the one person you're supposed to be sharing this with.
And it's not just about the act itself.
Right, it's the emotions behind it.
Yeah.
It's about a man feeling prioritized.
Okay.
Desire, like he's important to his wife.
Like he's still attractive.
Exactly. Yeah. It affirms his masculine identity.
Right.
In the marriage.
That makes sense.
Yeah.
So what's at stake for a husband when this need isn't met?
Well, think about it. Yeah. You're not getting that affirmation, that feeling of being desired. So what happens? You feel rejected.
Rejected.
Yeah. Unwanted, like your needs don't matter.
Like you're not important.
Exactly. And Dr. Harley's talked to literally hundreds of men about this.
Really?
In his counseling practice.
Wow.
And this unmet need, it's a huge vulnerability, makes men more susceptible to temptation.
To having an affair.
Yeah, to looking for that fulfillment outside the marriage.
Right.
And he really believes that this is a big reason why so many men cheat. It's not an excuse.
Right.
But it's an explanation.
It's something to think about.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay, so moving on to the next need conversation.
All right.
And this one, Dr. Harley says, is usually really important for wives.
Okay, so we're back to wives tending to prioritize this one.
Right.
Got it.
And it's not just about, like, chatting about the grocery list, right?
No, definitely not.
It's deeper than that.
Yeah, much deeper.
What kind of conversation are we talking about here?
We're talking about intimate conversation.
With honesty and openness.
Right.
Like those deep, meaningful exchanges where you feel really heard, understood, connected through sharing your thoughts and feelings and experiences.
And feeling like the other person's really listening.
Totally present.
Yeah.
Engaged.
Right.
Like they actually care about what you're saying.
So what happens when a husband isn't giving that kind of conversational connection?
Oh, it's a big withdrawal from the love bank.
A big withdrawal.
Yeah, because the wife feels like her husband's not really there.
Yeah.
Not interested in her inner world.
Right.
Like he's not making space for her thoughts and feelings.
Yeah.
And that lack of connection can lead to feeling lonely.
Lonely.
Emotionally distant within the marriage.
Even though they're physically together.
Exactly.
Yeah.
It's like they're living separate lives.
Right.
And guess what?
What?
That unmet need for conversation.
makes her more vulnerable to finding someone else.
Who will listen.
Who will listen, who will engage.
Right.
Who will give her that attention.
So it's like a pattern.
It is a pattern, unfortunately.
Yeah, okay.
It's a common one.
So the next one.
Okay.
Recreational companionship.
Right.
And this one tends to be a bigger need for husbands on average.
Okay, husbands again.
Yeah.
Got it.
So why is it so important? Like to have a partner in fun, in leisure?
Well, for a lot of husbands,
yeah,
sharing fun activities and hobbies with their wives is a major way they connect and build those shared memories.
Yeah.
You know, it's about having someone who actually enjoys doing things with them.
Right.
Whether it's sports hobbies, going out,
yeah,
traveling, whatever it is.
Just having fun together.
Yeah, having fun together.
Right.
Being playful.
It
fosters this sense of camaraderie, shared enjoyment.
Okay.
Like you're truly partners in life.
Right.
Not just roommates.
Not just roommates who share a house.
Exactly.
Yeah.
It's about experiencing life together.
So what if that's missing? Like, what's the impact if the husband feels like his wife just isn't into any of this stuff he enjoys?
Well, it can lead to this feeling of disconnection. Like they don't really share important parts of themselves or have those common interests.
And that can make him feel lonely too.
Absolutely.
Right.
And while it might not be as directly linked to infidelity as some of the other needs, it can definitely contribute to that overall dissatisfaction and emotional distance.
Okay.
It's like a part of him is missing.
Missing?
Yeah, from the relationship.
Okay, so let's talk about honesty and openness.
Right.
Dr. Harley says this is mainly a need for wives on average.
Okay, wives again.
Yeah.
Got it.
And this seems like pretty basic to any relationship.
Right, like who doesn't want honesty?
Right, exactly.
But what's the emphasis here? So for wives, it's really about this deep desire for trust.
Okay.
Like total trust in their husbands.
Right.
And that trust is built on honesty and complete openness in everything.
Yeah.
Communication behavior, everything.
So it's about feeling secure.
Completely secure that their husband is being truthful, transparent in all aspects of their life together.
So what happens when that trust is broken?
Oh, man, that's like a crack in the foundation of a building.
Yeah.
You know, it shatters that sense of security, leads to feelings of betrayal, insecurity, anxiety.
It's like the rug's been pulled out from under you.
Exactly. And once that trust is broken, it is so hard to rebuild.
Right.
It takes so much time and effort.
Yeah.
And sometimes it's just not possible.
Right.
The damage is too great.
The damage is too great.
Yeah.
So yeah, honesty.
Huge.
So important.
Essential.
Okay, moving on. We have an interesting one.
Okay.
An attractive spouse. And Dr. Harley says this one's mainly a need for husbands, on average.
Okay, husbands again?
Yeah.
Interesting.
And this one might sound kind of superficial.
Right, yeah, on the surface.
Right.
It's like, oh, come on, it's just about looks.
Yeah, but it's deeper than that.
It is deeper than that.
So what's he really getting at here?
It's not about meeting some, like, impossible beauty standard.
Right.
Or, like, conforming to what magazines tell you.
Yeah.
It's more about the husband feeling proud of his wife.
Okay.
And still feeling that physical attraction.
Right.
You know, it's about her showing that she cares about herself.
Okay.
And the relationship enough to maintain herself.
Right. To take care of herself.
Yeah, to take care of herself, you know, physically.
So what happens if this need isn't met?
Well, if a husband feels like his wife has totally stopped caring about how she looks, it can unfortunately lead to him being less attracted to her over time.
Yeah.
And that can affect their sex life.
Right.
Now, it might not be the main reason for an affair. Okay.
On its own.
Yeah.
But it can definitely contribute to those feelings of dissatisfaction and distance.
Like something's missing.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Like something's not quite right.
Okay, so up next, we have financial support. And Dr. Harley mentions that this can be important for either spouse, but it often comes up as a big need for wives.
Okay, so back to wives.
Yeah, on average.
Makes sense.
So what's at the heart of this need?
For wives, it's often about feeling secure.
Okay.
Stable, cared for.
Yeah.
It's about having enough money to live comfortably, to meet their needs and the needs of their family.
Right.
And not being stressed about money all the time.
Constantly, yeah.
Yeah, it's like this feeling of safety.
Okay.
Knowing that they can handle whatever life throws at them financially.
And that their husband is taking care of things.
Right, that he's being responsible.
Yeah.
A good provider.
A good provider, okay.
Yeah. So what are the consequences when that financial security is lacking?
Well, it can create a ton of stress,
Yeah.
anxiety, even resentment, because the wife feels like her basic needs and the needs of her family aren't being met. And it can lead to arguments, tension, this feeling that something's not fair in the relationship.
That makes sense.
Yeah.
Okay, we're moving right along.
We are on a roll.
We are.
Keep going.
So next we have domestic support.
Okay.
Which tends to be more important for husbands on average.
Okay. Husbands again?
Yep.
All right.
So what does this actually mean?
So domestic support, it's about the husband's need for a peaceful home environment.
Okay.
An orderly home.
Right.
A place where he can relax.
Unwind.
Yeah, unwind.
Their work.
Exactly, de-stress.
Yeah.
And it's not about the wife doing absolutely everything. It's about sharing the responsibility.
Right.
For keeping the home running smoothly.
Okay.
So it feels like a sanctuary.
A sanctuary.
A place of peace.
Right.
Not chaos.
Not chaos.
Yeah.
Okay, so what happens when a husband feels like he's not getting that support?
Oh, man. It can lead to a lot of stress, frustration, resentment.
Okay.
He feels like he's constantly surrounded by chaos.
Yeah.
Like he has to do everything himself.
Right.
Or like he doesn't have a place to escape to at the end of the day.
And that can create a lot of tension in the marriage?
Absolutely.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah.
We're getting close to the end of the list.
Okay, we're almost there.
Almost there.
All right.
So number 9 is family commitment.
Family commitment. Okay.
And Dr. Harley says this one's usually a big one for wives on average.
Wives again.
Yep.
Got it.
So what does strong family commitment look like in a marriage?
Well, from the wife's perspective, it's about her husband being a loving, involved father and being totally committed to the family.
The whole family unit.
The whole family unit. It's about sharing those parenting responsibilities.
Right.
Presenting a united front
right.
when it comes to raising their kids.
Right.
And showing that he prioritizes the family's well-being above everything else.
So what happens if a husband isn't showing that commitment?
Oh, it can lead to a lot of resentment.
Resentment, yeah.
Yeah, the wife feels like she's carrying the load.
Alone.
Alone, yeah.
Right.
Like she's doing everything.
Yeah.
And her husband's not really there.
Emotionally or physically.
Exactly.
Right.
And that creates this feeling of imbalance, unfairness.
Like a huge divide.
A huge divide, yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, it's a big one.
Okay. And finally.
Okay, the last one.
The 10th need.
All right, let's hear it.
Admiration.
Admiration, okay.
And on average, this one's a big one for husbands.
Okay, husbands again.
Yeah.
Got it.
So what's the big deal?
Okay, so for a lot of husbands, feeling like their wife is genuinely proud of them, respects them, admires them for who they are and what they do, it's super important for their self-esteem, their sense of being valued, feeling loved and appreciated in the marriage. It's like feeling seen, acknowledged for their strengths, their contributions, like they matter.
So what happens when a husband doesn't feel that admiration?
Oh, man.
Or even worse, like if he feels criticized.
Yeah, criticized all the time.
Yeah.
That's even worse.
Yeah.
It can make him feel inadequate.
Like he's not enough.
Yeah, not good enough, unvalued.
Yeah.
And that takes a toll on his confidence and on their emotional connection.
Yeah.
It can really create distance.
Distance, yeah.
Yeah.
So there you have it.
Wow, we made it.
We made it through all 10 emotional needs.
10 emotional needs.
It's a lot to take in.
It's a lot to take in.
But it's so important for building a strong marriage.
Exactly. And, you know,
it's so important for you, the listener, to remember that Dr. Harley emphasizes that these are averages.
Right. It's not like a one-size-fits-all thing.
Exactly.
Yeah.
It's based on his research.
Yeah.
But it's not a rigid prescription.
Yeah, every individual is different.
Every single person is different.
Exactly. And that's a really important point because couples can get into trouble when they try to please each other.
Right.
Based on what they think their partner needs.
Right.
You know? And it might not be what their partner actually needs.
Yeah, they might be projecting their own needs.
Exactly.
Onto their partner.
Yeah, it's like they're speaking different languages.
Right, right. And Dr. Harley is very clear that any person, regardless of gender, can prioritize any of these needs.
Exactly.
Like there's no, men only need this, women only need that.
Right. It's not about stereotypes.
It's not about stereotypes.
It's about understanding the individual.
The individual.
Yeah.
Which is such a huge takeaway for everyone listening.
It is. It's so easy to fall into those traps
of
assumptions and stereotypes.
Right.
But Dr. Harley's work is all about understanding the individual needs.
Yes.
In your specific marriage.
In your specific relationship?
Yeah.
It's not about generalities.
Right. It's about getting specific.
Specific.
Yeah.
And he actually includes these really practical tools in his book.
Oh, cool. Like what?
Like a summary of the needs.
Okay.
And even an emotional needs questionnaire.
A questionnaire? That's interesting.
Yeah. To help couples figure out what their priorities are.
Okay. That makes sense.
And those tools are so valuable.
Yeah.
Because they help you move beyond the general stuff.
Right.
And get to what really matters.
To the heart of it.
To the heart of it.
Yeah.
And it's when those needs go unmet.
Right.
That Dr. Harley says a thirst develops.
A thirst. That's a powerful word.
It is, right?
Like you're parched.
Yeah.
You need something to quench that thirst.
Can you talk a little more about that? Like, what does that thirst feel like?
Okay, so when your needs aren't met, you start to feel this longing.
Yeah.
This emptiness.
Like a void.
A void, yeah. And even if you have strong beliefs about fidelity and commitment, that unmet need can make you really tempted.
Tempted to stray.
Yeah, to look for that fulfillment somewhere else.
Right.
Even if you know it's wrong.
It's like this primal drive.
It is. It's like you're driven by this need to feel loved.
Appreciated.
Appreciated, seen.
Yeah.
Fulfilled. And if you're not getting it at home,
you
might start looking elsewhere.
And that leads us to the tough topic of affairs.
Affairs.
And Dr. Harley talks about how they often start in ways that seem totally innocent.
Right. It's not usually this sudden, passionate thing.
Okay.
It's more gradual.
Yeah.
It often starts with a friendship.
A friendship.
Yeah.
Okay.
People start sharing their problems. Their frustrations.
Yeah.
And they find support and understanding.
From someone outside the marriage.
Exactly.
Okay.
Especially in those areas where their needs aren't being met at home.
Right. Okay. Yeah.
And they start communicating more.
Okay. So, we always hear like compromise is so important in a marriage, right? Like talking things out. But like, what if there's something even more basic?
Right.
To making a marriage really happy and strong.
Yeah.
A marriage that lasts.
Yeah.
Like something really deep inside us emotionally. So that's what we're looking at today.
Okay.
We're doing a deep dive into this guy, Dr. Willard Harley Jr.
Okay.
Specifically his book, His Needs, Her Needs, Building an Affair-Proof Marriage.
Right.
We're going to really explore like the core needs he talks about. The needs that are basically like the building blocks for a really great relationship.
Yeah.
And we're going to look at what happens when those needs get ignored.
Interesting.
Like consistently